So for our two DIY instruments that we're going to be doing today together in this video, here are the supplies that I'm going to use. So let's start off. I'm going to be using some tape, and we have some painter's tape and then some regular tape. And it doesn't matter what kind, it can be thinner than this or something like this. Any kind of tape will do. It can be clear tape too, that would be perfect. And then you're going to need either hair ties like I have here or rubber bands. I don't have any rubber bands. I only have 2 rubber bands and they're a little bit small. So I'm going to be using hair ties instead for my DIY instruments. So you can use whatever you have at home. And then the next thing we're going to use a few different lids to some jars. So I have 2 metal lids here. One's a little bit smaller, one's a little bit bigger. And then I have one even bigger little plastic lid. Alright, so whatever you have, I have 1 plastic lid and then 2 metal lids, and all 3 of them are different sizes. Then we're going to use either toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls. So if you have toilet paper rolls, I'm going to use 2 of them and combine them together to make a longer one. But if you have paper towel rolls, you can use that too. And then in this cup I have just a tiny little bit of rice that we're going to use to make our instruments as well. And then last thing you're going to need is some markers, or you can use crayons. I'm just going to use my markers to decorate the instruments after I'm done making them. So whatever you have, if they're markers, crayons, colored pencils, whatever you have on hand, or just a regular pencil, to draw some details onto your instruments, that'll be perfect too. And I've decided to use some Seaford colors today, so let's make our instruments and then we'll get to decorating them. So the first instrument that we're going to create together is a little rain shaker, or kind of like a rain stick. And for this we're going to need the toilet paper rolls or the paper towel roll that's a little bit longer. I'm going to take these 2, and first, since I'm using 2 smaller ones, I'm just going to tape them in the middle so I can have a longer instrument. So let me get my tape, and I only need a little bit just to go around. Maybe that much should do. Alright, so actually maybe I'm going to take a little tiny piece from this piece of tape. I'll stick that on the side, and then I'll take this to line it up so they're nicely lined up. Then I'm going to put that there, just my tiny little piece so it holds together. And now I know how they're going to be lined up, so I can a little bit easier put on my big piece of tape. So start with a little piece of tape just to hold them together, and now I'm going in with my bigger piece of tape. Alright, that's perfect, so it wraps all the way around. Alright, now next thing I'm going to do is that we have to cover up these holes on this side. So we're going to cover up one first. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is that we have to cover up both sides of our rain stick. But if we take the tape and cover up one side of it, all of our rice will get stuck to the inside, that sticky part of the tape. So what I'm going to do, I have a spare piece of paper here. I'm going to take what we have so far for our rain stick. I'm going to put it down, and then I'm going to trace around the bottom. And then it's going to be kind of a circle. Mine's a little bit squished, but we're going to make a circle right down here. Now I'm going to carefully cut out my circle. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to take a little piece of tape, maybe about this long, so that we have enough room to stick down our little circle. Alright, now right in the middle of this might be a little bit tricky with one hand, so maybe if you have someone to help you, this would be great. I'm going to take my little piece of paper and put it right down in the middle. And now I'm gonna try to line up my little circle of paper with the hole in our rain stick. And then I'm gonna bring the tape down and then try to cover it up as best as I can. We're gonna put another piece of tape on this too. So this is just our first pass to make sure that our paper is stuck on there. All right, now I think I'm gonna trim off some of this extra tape that we have on the sides. And then we need one more piece of tape just to cover up the other sides here where the tape did not cover. And now I'm going to go the opposite way. So you see our two ends are right here, but then there's a little bit of empty space in the middle. I'm going to take my tape and try to cover up those two empty spaces that we have left over. All right, and again, actually, I'm just gonna leave it like it is right now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take a few spoonfuls of my rice and fill them up in my little rain stick. So there's 1, 2, 3, and let's say maybe one more, 4 small spoons of rice into our rain stick. And now we have to do the same thing where we have to cover up this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to trace another circle here, because remember we don't want that sticky tape to get stuck to all of our rice. And I'm going to trace the side that we already have taped down. And then cut this out. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing, take a piece of tape and then stick this guy on. All right, so I have my tape sticky side up. I'm going to take my little circle of paper and put it right in the middle, stick it down. And then this time, actually, I think I'm going to trim off these ends of the tape just so they're nice and straight. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing, line up our paper with the hole in our rain stick. And stick it down. And for these little corners that kind of stick up right here, I'm just going to pinch them and fold them down. And now we're going to take our second piece of tape and do the same thing, put it across where we're missing some tape and the corners are kind of lifting here. I'm going to take it the opposite direction, stick it down on the top, and then fold the corners down. Alright, and now this time around I'm going to trim off the little extra pieces that we have hanging around here. Just a little trim around the edges. And be careful, you don't want to cut too much over here because then your tape is going to start coming off and some of the rice might come out. So you just want to be careful here. See, oh, right here I cut a little bit too much and you can see the cardboard peeking out. So just a little tiny bit so we don't have those sharp edges. All right, and here we go. There is our rain stick. You can go super fast and they can just go quickly from one side to the other, or you can slowly let it go down. And another thing that you can do to fill your rain stick with is you can experiment with different types of materials that you can put inside of here, something that's small, and see what kind of sounds you get. So for example, if you have some beads laying around for arts and crafts projects, you can take a few spoonfuls of beads and put them inside your rain stick. Or maybe if you have, instead of rice, you can take little tiny noodles and put them in here instead. Or you can even go outside and take a few rocks and put them in here. So there's a lot of different materials that you can put inside of your rain stick. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate this a little bit. So I'm actually going to go back to that first side we taped. And I'm just going to clean up some of this tape and cut it off in a straight line. Just so we don't have those jaggedy pieces. Alright, now last thing we're going to do is decorate. So we have a little room left to decorate our rain sticks right here on the cardboard. So what I'm going to do first is actually go in with a pencil. And I think I'm going to draw on some music notes right here. But if you've been watching Mrs. Shupard's art videos, you know she's been going through different types of patterns that you can add on to your projects and your artwork. So if you know some different patterns that you learned from Mrs. Shupard, you can put them here, different dots, zigzags, whatever you want. I think I'm going to stick with some music notes. So I'm going to have a ta right here, maybe put a quarter rest. And then let's put an eighth note or a TT right here. And then how about right here, let's put a half note. And then I think I have room for one more, so let's put a half rest. All right, and then on the bottom, I think I'm gonna write my name, so I'm gonna put Mrs. Oleniak. And it's good to go in with your pencil first, just to make sure you have everything down where you want it to be, because you can still erase with your pencil. If you go in straight with your marker or your crayon, if you make a mistake, you won't be able to erase it. Alright, so there's my name, and I have a little bit more room for a music note right here. So I think I'm going to put another eighth note or a TT, and then we're ready to fill them in with our markers. Okay, so here is my finished rain stick. So all of my music notes and my name that I wrote down with my pencil first, I filled in with a blue marker. And then I went back with a few yellow markers and made a few little dots all over the place. Alright, so here is my finished rain stick. And now let's move on to our second DIY instrument for today's video. So now moving on to our second DIY project, we're going to make little tiny banjos or little tiny drums or ukuleles, whatever you want to call them. So using my lids, I'm actually going to go with the biggest one first, just so you can see a little bit easier in the video. But if you have a smaller one or a bigger one or a metal one, whatever you have, I'm just going to use my biggest one. So we're going to start and take your hair ties, or if you have rubber bands, that will work awesome too. And this one's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to take my hair ties and wrap them around my lid. And you have to be careful because they might slip off once you're playing them. Alright, so there's one hair tie. And now it does get a little bit tricky adding more hair ties on here. Let's see, let's add this one. Alright, now let's see how this one sounds. It's a little bit quiet. If you had just plain rubber bands, it would be a little bit louder. But since the hair ties are rubber bands, but they're covered in fabric, they're a little bit more soft, a little bit more quiet, but you can still hear it when they play. Alright, let's see if I can squeeze one more. Let's take a different color this time. Let's see if this one can fit around here. Alright, now again, I'm holding both sides just for now, just so the rubber bands don't slip off. So there's a few different ways that you can actually play on your little guitar or ukulele here. You can strum it with your thumb, so go back and forth, or you can lift them up. So you can get a couple different sounds out of these. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of tape and put it right on the side so these guys don't come off. So I'm going to take a piece on the side and I think a piece on the bottom too, just so they stay in place. I'm going to take my piece of tape. And for this one, if you have some thinner tape, that would be perfect. But for me, since I have this wide tape, I'm going to have to cut it in half. And cut a thin little piece. 2 thin little pieces of tape. And now I'm going to take this and put it on both sides. Alright, there's one side. And then on this side too. Alright, and then I'm going to take my bigger piece of tape and put it on the underside just to make sure they don't slip off. Alright, and press it down nice and tight. And now we have our tiny little banjo or a little ukulele. Now, usually when we have a guitar, it has some kind of handle so we can actually hold it and play. For the handle, I'm actually going to take a clothespin and just clip it right here at the top. Let's try, maybe this one's a little bit bigger. And I'm going to try to put it in between my strings. Alright, just like that. So I have the strings and then I have my clothespin in between them. So now I have something to hold. So I'm holding on to my little clothespin and then playing on my little ukulele strings. So depending how big your lid is, that depends on how many strings you can fit. I could probably fit one more string on here because it's a little bit bigger. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing and make a little drum with my metal lids and then see how those sound compared to this one plastic lid. Alright, here is my little metal lid guitar, and this one sounds a little bit different since we have metal instead of plastic. So my rubber bands are already starting to slip off a little. I'm holding them on the top of it. So it just sounds a little bit different than the plastic lid. So let me know down in the comments what kind of material you used. Did you use a plastic lid, a metal lid, or what kind of lid, and what kind of sounds did you get from your lid?